So by the time sixth period came around and I was teaching my fifth lesson, I decided that I wouldn't let happen in sixth period what had previously happened in fourth, where I had lost control. So I, I subconsciously, I guess, thought back to society, the classroom, and instructional practice, and I became much more assertive, at least for the first few minutes in the classroom with the students. There was some students who wouldn't quiet down, so I walked over to the area and, kind of looked at them and said, really, I'm talking, you gotta listen up to what I'm saying. And I hadn't been that assertive in previous classes, so I was that was a hurdle for me to reach because I discussed in the previous lessons I kind of felt embarrassed, or that I really couldn't go up to a student and ask them to listen up or to pay attention to what the content I was presenting. So I'm gonna decide to discuss assessment overall and just kind of see how sixth period played out. For sixth period, I made sure that I brought in a way to hook the student at first, like I had in first, second, and third period. So I went through that whole discussion on my own family and how we experienced and how it's shaped my grandparents' lives with Cesar Chavez's movement. So I think that engaged students because as I went around the room, I did get good responses again. When I asked for participation, I didn't have to pick on any particular group. There was more than enough people willing to contribute to the class discussion. The PowerPoint went over smoothly again, and for the Beyond section, I decided to do it a little bit different. I had in the past had students do an individual quick response, a group response, and for the last period, I thought I'd do a canned questions as an informal formative assessment. And I have mixed feelings on how this went. I think canned question might be better off used as a way of reviewing, not so much and to assess where students are progressing, but as a form of final assessment on a unit or an overall lesson. I think I did the students a disservice by not allowing them to really show me what they had learned in terms of content. I had a hard time getting students to raise their hand and give me more than 3 or 4 word responses. I really didn't get them to critical think. And in reading some of the short responses that the groups formulated and that even the students did individually, I can see in their responses, at least their written responses, that they were able to critically think more. And when I called on them or asked for participants, I didn't give them the due time to maybe comprehend the information, input it, and then be able to formulate some thoughts on that, as the students who were able to write had that benefit. So I don't think canned questions was very effective. That was another learning moment for me. It was kind of chaotic and didn't really go over well. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but after having had positive experiences with the first 2 Beyond sections of the other lessons that I taught, I just didn't think that canned questions matched up to the level, at least for my own benefit, of where I wanted students to be at. So my thoughts on assessment are get to know your students. Maybe in my own class I'll create the environment where I'm able to do a canned questions activity as an assessment, and I know that students will have an expectation that they have to be able to raise their hand and think beyond 4 or 5 word responses. So I really can't blame this sixth period if the teacher really hasn't had this type of assessment in the past. I think it's something that we have to build on, and to get students to be at a level where I would find acceptable to pursue these forms of assessment. When I did talk to my teacher, he says that in the past they've done debates as a class, illustrations, and papers. Kind of like short responses. Illustrations, they did propaganda posters, and for debates he had them sit on either side, either in favor or thinking that imperialism was overall effective, or that there could have been other means to spread whatever it was that imperialism spread. I am not sure that in sixth period that my canned questions activity went over well, as I mentioned already. And I think it goes to what I said, that there needs to be an environment created where students know what's expected of them. Overall, my experience with this unit and teaching these 5 lessons that varied in implementation and in format, every class is different, and what works in one class as it did in third period does not necessarily translate to being very effective in other classes, as it did not in the very next period, which was fourth. We constantly need to be evolving, and we need to make lesson plans which are easily adaptable on the spot. And if they aren't, and if they're more concrete, then there may be times where students aren't really benefiting from the lesson. We're doing them a disservice by presenting them something that's just not relatable to them, and something that putting a goal that's out of their reach. And I'm not saying that to disparage any student and say that they can't reach a certain goal, but if there's not a way for us to reach out to that student and get them engaged, then the result that we're expecting might not be there. So overall, with the exception of a fourth period where it was not as positive an experience as I'd liked it to be, teaching these lessons really helped me to understand who I am as a teacher and who I want to be going forward.